Hello and welcome. This is just a short video in response to something that's been a concern for people in Bridgend County for a few weeks now. But with a uh, report in Oggy Bloggy today by Owen Donovan, we're going to discuss it. And Councillor Williams has been kind enough to spare some of his time to talk to me about it. Today we're going to talk about the free school bus travel between schools and outside the area because it is an area concern for a lot of people at this time. So, first of all, welcome, Alex, and how are you
Thank you very
today?
much. Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm not too bad, not too bad. Right, this is a concern, and I know it's a concern to people in your area, but sometimes it's for slightly different reasons than other areas. So I'm not just
Yes.
going to talk to Alex today. I will be talking to Councillor Amanda Williams later. Um, Maybe a separate video. It may be spliced in with this. We'll see later. Anyway, today there's been reports of a petition circulating for people to ask Bridgend County Borough Council to change the policy of limiting free school travel to 2 miles for comprehensive and 3 miles for primary school because it doesn't fit everybody. This petition is aimed at Cumby Comp, and I'll just share my screen and you can see the. Hello, sorry for interrupting this discussion with Alex Williams. I realised when editing the video the screen you saw was not the screen I saw. So I've had to edit that out, and for those of you who would like to see Owen Donovan's article, I will share my screen hopefully this time with the correct picture. If you want to see it, pause it before going on to the video. I will scroll down as I go through so everybody can read. Just pause and then resume the video. There we go, and thank you. And I'd just like to point out later on, I meant the House of Commons, not the House of Lords. Bus drivers and other things. But if you can just give us a little bit of problems of what it is in that your residents are concerned with in Penpresk and the surrounding area at Pencoed.
Yeah, sure, Luke, no problem. I can speak more widely, I suppose, about the issue of homeschool transport as well.
Yeah,
As residents may be aware, I'm group leader of the Independence Alliance, which is the main opposition group in Bridgend County Borough. So I can speak a little bit more widely as well. Um, First of all, regarding the petition, I believe it's attracted over 1,000 signatures already.
yeah,
And clearly, Bridgend County Borough Council should expect more of these kinds of petitions and therefore deal with them, I think, in full council as a debate to actually address residents' significant concerns about this particular issue. But it's an issue which has been going on for some time. And when I first joined the council, I was uh, scrutiny chair of the education committee at that time, and we looked into this in great detail. Now, to be honest with you, it's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for any administration
yeah,
in the county borough council, because as residents may or may not be aware, there was a 1.1 million pounds overspend in the home to school transport budget, and it's continually an area which overspends its budget. So there are major challenges in this area, and it needs a new look at how we address this challenge. So a number of years ago, they brought in policy changes which suggested that nursery pupils and over 16s weren't going to have home to school transport, that some of the safe routes to school, if you live on a safe route to school, then that would be abolished as well. And now there's a suggestion that the distance from home to school will be reduced yet further, as you mentioned. So this clearly affects Myned Cymfig comprehensive, and that's where the petition has been brought about. But as you mentioned in your opening remarks, it affects areas potentially such as my own in Penfrisk, which also takes into account the community of Helakew. And we must be mindful of the fact that in many of our more deprived valleys communities, there are significant populations more than 2 miles away from the nearest comprehensive school. You know, when you look at the Llynley Valley, for example, there are a number of significant communities, for example, Llangynoed and other communities in that kind of area, who attend, at which pupils attend Maesteg Comprehensive. So this will have a significant effect on them as well. However, as I mentioned, the £1 million deficit in this budget does need to be tackled somehow. So, you know, I'm not sure whether I have all the answers. No councillor necessarily has all the answers, but it certainly does need to be looked at. In my particular area, what has been more important lately is the access to school breakfast clubs in Pencoed Primary School in particular. And that was the suggestion that the home to school transport bus from Helakew was only going to arrive at the start of the school day, rather than in time for breakfast club. Now, there were a number of challenges from residents and myself of whether this was appropriate, because if, for example, you live in a semi-rural area like Helakew, potentially you might miss out from the breakfast club. And clearly what we wanted was to ensure that those who actually need a healthy breakfast at the very beginning of the school day are able to actually receive that. Now, on the flip side, of course, some residents actually contacted me to say, well, my child doesn't eat breakfast. So therefore, I want my child to actually arrive by the start of the school day. So it's a catch-22 situation, really, about whether you provide the bus in time for breakfast club or whether you provide the bus in time for the school day. So that's another kind of debate which is going on. So hopefully I've summed up a few of the different challenges which are facing home to school transport there.
Yeah. The law for the home school transport goes back to 2016 amendment, when the Welsh Government actually took over the responsibility for school transport. And in regards to petitioning the council, that's going to change as of this year, I believe, with the new Local Governments Act 2021, that councils have to provide a provision for petitioning now. I believe it is, which is mentioned in the article. That's where I got it from, so I'm not cheating and saying I've done a lot of research there. It's Owen Donovan who's done the research. Very good. I think I'm moving off the primary school thing for now, and I'm going on my own experiences when I was a kid. Now, I grew up in the 80s. I'm a child of the 80s, so I lived in the era where times were tight and times were hard. I lived more than 2 miles away from my high school, but they provided transport. They didn't have to then, there wasn't the law for it then, but they provided transport. But every child who got on the bus to go had to pay 50p per week towards the transport. It's just a little thing. It wasn't much, but it helped cut down the cost. Me and a lot of my mates, unless it was pouring down with rain, we used to walk to school because we saved the money to go to the shop. I think there may be something here that they can do that. I know school bus is free and it can be means tested, that you can get free transport for those on universal credit, low incomes and things like that. But there are people out there who can afford, even if it's just £1 for a week to travel on the bus, it cuts down some of the cost. I know it's. I
think the issue here, though, Luke, is that, it's an issue which has been raised on numerous occasions now. Whether you look at breakfast clubs, or whether you look at home to school transport, whether you look at the motion which Councillor Pennell Thomas put forward this week on free school meals. it's all about a postcode lottery at the moment, isn't it? And some
Yeah,
of our more semi-rural communities are not actually receiving the same level of service
service.
delivery as
No,
our urban communities. So, that's the question which needs to be addressed. There shouldn't be a case whereby my constituents, perhaps who live in Pencoed, should have more benefits from BCBC service delivery than my constituents in Hela Q who live in a semi-rural area. Now, you mentioned the fact that you were fortunate enough to be able to walk to your high school when you were younger to save you 50p for the shop,
three
but
miles.
3 miles, well, that's a long way to walk.
Yeah, I
But
want that.
when you consider, I don't know whether you know the area very well, but when you
Yes,
consider the
it's not.
distance from Helique to Pencoed Comprehensive
Yes,
School, for
it's not
example,
possible.
you're walking along a road which is totally unsuitable for comprehensive school children to walk along. It isn't a safe route to school. There's an
No.
aspiration to build a £1 million safe route to school, an active travel route along the B4280 from Pencoed to Helique. But that is an aspiration which is well into the future and certainly not going to be in time for this kind of
No.
change. So, it's a it's a case whereby we do need to ensure that some provision is in place for free home to school transport in those kinds of communities which I suggest. In areas which have significant
Disadvantage.
populations,
Yeah.
but are in semi-rural areas, and there are a number of them across the county borough which need to be catered for.
Yes. I didn't mean to disparage anybody who lived in semi-rural areas, saying that
No,
implying
no, I know.
that they've got more money and therefore they should think. But what I was trying to say, there are other alternatives than just saying, "Oh, we can't provide free school transport." It doesn't essentially have to be free. It could be a bare minimum of how much a week? £1 a week. It's not much, but it goes. It will go a long way to helping the cost of the free school transport. And yes, I know they've had an overspend of over 1 million, as you pointed out, but the council have saved, as we see come out in an audit recently, saved a lot of money over the last several years to have a lot of income. And currently, this policy is trying to be a one size fits all. You are free school travel 2 miles to 3 miles if there's not a safe route. So it's free school travel. If it's shorter, I don't know what the policy is. If it's under that 2 mile and there isn't a safe route, do they still have to provide free transport?
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't believe
because
they'd be left in the lurch. So that that would cover the Hina Q example,
yeah,
which I referenced. I suppose I use that because it is my patch, and I use it as an example of the distance between the schools. So perhaps that was an appropriate example to raise. But all I say is that in a number of valleys communities whereby they are a significant distance away from their particular
yes,
comprehensive school, this could affect them, and as is being demonstrated by the petition, it clearly affects a significant number of people down in Mynydd Cynthig.
yeah. Um, I was going to say, with the school travel, with the distance being 2 mile for comprehensive and 3 mile for primary, is that as the crow flies, or is that walking that safe route?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I'd have to check. I'd rather not make it up as I go along.
No,
So
no. I should have. I
no,
just thought.
I don't
I
know.
just
I
thought of
really
that
don't know.
now
It's
because
a good question.
I know a lot of things are as the crow flies, but you can't normally go as the crow flies. If you're coming from Helique to Pencoed Primary, as crow flies is walking through here, fields and up a hill and then
Yeah,
back
you can
down.
walk over a mountain. So
Yeah,
I would imagine it's driving distance, but I am
uh,
actually making that up now. But I
yeah.
would imagine that's the most logical conclusion to draw.
So, will this be coming? Are there any plans within the council chambers at the moment to bring this up as a thing, or are we waiting for this petition to gain enough signatures that they have to discuss it?
Once again, I'm not sure what the Local Government Act actually says about this. You said that it was going to be brought in, didn't you, in the Act? Um,
I think if there's
I,
a certain amount of petition, like the House of Lords and like the Senate anyway, if there's a certain amount of signatures to a petition to a government, whether it's local, national, or Great Britain, that they have to discuss.
yeah, I'm aware that's the case at the moment
Yeah,
in the Senate
but
and in Parliament. They do have to discuss them if it reaches a certain threshold.
yes, I think it's the same for local government because I believe it came up a couple of years ago in regards to something in Bridgend County Council, and they
Okay,
had.
well, I don't recall receiving a petition so far during my time, but I might be wrong.
I'm
But you
sure
know,
it's something. If not, maybe
it's
that is
certainly
what the.
worthy of debate. You know, it's certainly
Yeah,
worthy of debate. And
it is.
as group leaders, we get an opportunity now that the quarterly debates have been brought in to decide on potential topics of those quarterly debates. Now we have one coming up in October in the chamber, so you know potentially we could raise this as something which is worthy of further discussion because a significant number of residents have raised it. You know.
Yeah, I know. I would just like to point out at this point, this policy does not affect children with disabilities or anything like that. It doesn't come into effect with them, but you still have concern. So if you want to sign a petition, stand with your fellow people and pupils of the schools. My son is one who benefits from free transport for disabilities. He does go to Convict Comp himself, so it is an issue. And I saw this today, and I thought it's been gaining thing because I've seen from posts in your area regarding the Breakfast Club. I've seen posts not just where I am in Coity and things like that. I've seen it from throughout the county. There's concern generally throughout the county, and maybe it is something. We will say that this is a policy from the Welsh government, not from the British government, and what the policy advises, these are the minimums, isn't it? The 3 mile and the 2 mile. You can do what the councils can actually do what they want in regards to how they enforce that policy. Whether they want to drop it to 2 miles and 1 mile, it's up to them. But they can't go beyond 3 miles and 2 miles. That is the maximum they can do. So it is up to Bridgend County Borough Council. It's not just Assembly government issue. They've provided guidelines, and Bridgend County Borough Council have to work within those guidelines. If you do have a concern, sign this petition. I'll try and put a link to it on the Political Owl page. Write to your local councillors, Alex, and any other councillor if you do have concerns, because it is an issue, and we do know not all routes that are safe that are classed as being safe are actually safe in eyes of people, because especially for primary school pupils, somebody will have to walk with them all the time, and it's not always safe, and not everybody can do it. And imagine a young child walking 2 miles, even on a safe route, in a thunderstorm on that sort of day. It's not ideal. Get to school soaking wet, and it's not great. Do you have any last comments before we wrap this up, Alex?
All I would say is that if you challenge or scrutinise Bridgend County Borough Council on their home to school transport scheme, they always say that it's one of the most generous home to school transport schemes in Wales.
Yeah.
So what I would say going forward is that, as I said in my initial remarks, it is not going to be an easy solution for any
No.
kind of administration to find, whether it be the current Labour minority administration or if after the election any kind of other political colour takes office. It's not going to be an easy solution to find, especially during a time of what has been financial uncertainty and austerity and cuts in local government budgets. So it's very clear, if anyone is sensible in looking at the finances, that a £1.1 million deficit does need addressing. Nevertheless, as you mentioned, there are alternative solutions rather than a one size fits all, as you
Yeah.
mentioned. And what shouldn't happen, in my view, is that there should be a postcode lottery, which there seems to be emerging at the moment,
Yeah,
whereby urban areas are or have more benefits from service delivery compared to some of our sometimes more deprived, but semi-rural um, areas, especially within our valleys communities, which
yeah,
also need to benefit significantly from this kind of policy. So, what I would suggest is if there were a possibility to actually undertake this exercise, is for new home to school transport contracts to be procured, which provides some assurances to these communities that they're going to be catered for going forward. So that's what I would perhaps suggest if I were in a position to exercise this kind of policy change.
yeah. I will just point out that it's unfair to heap all the blame on Bridgend County Borough Council because there is a driver shortage with public transport and private hire as well at the moment. So it's not all their fault. There are issues that obviously people think, but there are some issues they can't actually, that is not actually in their control. So while you may disagree with some things, please be patient in this time. We are coming out of a pandemic very slowly, and things will take time to get back to normal. So please be patient, like we were with the waste contract during the pandemic. There was a lot of things, and the operatives did fantastic work, and we had to be a little bit more patient. When it comes to driver shortage of this public transport, please be a little bit patient. It's something that is beyond Bridgend County Borough control and your local councillor's control. Anyway, thank you for that, Alex, and I'm sure we'll be
No
doing
problem, mate.
more of these in the coming weeks and months and up to the elections and things like that. So,
Yeah, happy to do so. No problem. Anytime.
no problem. Thank you, everybody, and I'll see you again soon.